in the US, if you say coaching to anyone, they know pretty much what you mean, right? And everyone knows that coaching is kind of high ticket. It's not going to be like $100, $200, right? But in China, like you have to explain it to some people because I think coaching is still rather new.
Yo, what's happening, people? Welcome back to Catch the Zenith. In this episode, my guest is Lea Bochtler. Lea is a high-performance coach and Columbia University grad who's helped over 400 clients level up their performance. Now, what it's like to grow a coaching business on China's biggest social media platform, WeChat, and serve hundreds of clients in a completely different cultural context. Get ready to learn how Lea grew to 120,000 followers on WeChat, how business culture in China differs from the US, what she learned from Richard Yu's coaching program, why university is no longer the most efficient path to high income skills, how to overcome social pressure when going your own way, how to develop real confidence through public speaking, plus a lot more. And if you are new here, I'm Nicola, 27-year-old entrepreneur, and on this podcast, I share my mistakes, what I'm learning, and insights from the people I interview. Expect episodes on high performance and business. So enjoy the show. Lea, you grew to 120,000 followers on WeChat very, very quickly. What's it really like to run a coaching business on WeChat in China?
Oh, good question. Big question. So I started on Instagram and Facebook, like I think a lot of people do. And then because I'm half Chinese, so I speak fluent Chinese. And, Chinese social media, the past 10 years or so, it's been exploding as well. I mean, there's more than 1 billion people here, and everyone's just like buying things online nowadays. So I was like, why don't I try Chinese social media, right? Where I have a natural advantage. So I decided to try one live stream on WeChat, and it went really well. Like I feel like I wasn't even making that big of an effort. For example, I was just having a conversation with someone on my computer, like someone from the US, and at the same time I was live streaming on WeChat. And just by doing that, I had a lot of people in the live stream room like asking me questions about how I speak such fluent English or where I'm from or my background and this and that. There was just so much curiosity and interest. So I was like, okay, maybe I should do more of this. So that's how I basically pivoted from the global market like Instagram, Facebook, to just focusing mainly on WeChat. And that's what I've been doing now for the past 2 years or so, like basically just focusing on WeChat. And to answer your question, what is it like to run a coaching business on WeChat? Well, I think people all kind of have the same problems. Like what I was coaching people on Instagram and Facebook, it's kind of what I'm still doing now. So the program hasn't changed. I think it's just about cultural differences and perhaps that I'm able to possibly make an even bigger impact in the Chinese market because my coaching program's in English. So a lot of people in China, they want to improve their English. And I make it really clear I'm not an English teacher, so I'm not going to offer like English classes, but people can join my coaching program and master their daily habits, time management, and improve their English quickly. So I think with that, it's like a huge value add for a lot of my students. Yeah, and I guess also being able to bring a global perspective and this Western coaching style to China, I think it's really interesting for a lot of my students. Yeah.
Interesting. In terms of, you mentioned the culture, what are some cultural differences between the US and China? Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Cultural differences between the US and China. I mean, there's so many. I'm trying to think. In terms of business, you mean?
Maybe in terms of business and also beyond. Yeah.
Also beyond. Hmm. I think the US is much more used to high ticket services, like high ticket coaching. So that's something I had to work on a lot when I introduced this to the Chinese market. Like it wasn't so easy or so well received by some people, right? Because usually in China, I guess I'll explain this quickly. There's a lot of people selling cheap courses. So if you scroll on any Chinese social media like 小红书, it's called Redbook, or Douyin, the Chinese version of TikTok, or WeChat channels, which is what I use, you'll find that most people who are like selling information is mainly just cheap courses, right? But for us, we do coaching. It's like high ticket, premium, customized, individualized coaching. So I think introducing that initially was perhaps a bit of a challenge. Some people, like more international people in China, maybe they get it immediately, but for others, you have to kind of explain to them what is the difference between coaching, which is much more valuable than just a course, and what they usually get, which is a course. So I guess it's just like that initial explaining. Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah, so the US market is more high ticket
Yeah,
sales, marketing, and then you need to explain a little bit, okay, how does that work there? So, uh,
exactly. Yeah. And I think it's just um how standardized it is. Like in the US, if you say coaching to anyone, they know pretty much what you mean, right? And everyone knows that coaching is kind of high ticket. It's not going to be like $100, $200, right? But in China, like you have to explain it to some people because I think coaching is still rather new. Mm.
and if we break that down in terms of how did you get your first 5 to 10 clients in China? Was it like similar to you do your outreaches on WeChat, or how does that like work in
Yeah.
practice?
Again, strategies are similar. Like we also do DMs, right? We also do initial consultations. I call it a consultation as opposed to like a sales call. So that process is similar, but I think whether it was the global market or let's say Western market where I initially started, or when I first started in the Chinese market, I got my first few students or clients through personal connections. So, for example, initially when I started in like the European American market, it was my friends, like literally my college classmates. Yeah, people who knew me well, trusted me, liked me, people who were going through a similar phase and challenges. So I really understood their pain points. And then when I shifted to the Chinese market, a lot of my first students were also like in the student age group, so not yet adults. And a lot of them were family friends, like my mom's friend's child, right? Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. What comes to mind is this 5 client framework that Alex Hormozy has. You might remember that he mentioned that in the book $100 Million Leads. I'm curious, like, I think also in your first versions when you had your coaching business in the US, you approached people you knew, classmates, etc. Was that like, did you send them just like a WhatsApp, or how did you do that precisely?
Honestly, I just DM'd them. So I think it was mainly Instagram. And but I think it really doesn't matter. Like it could be Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, whatever that person uses, and just DM them with like a very genuine message saying, "Hey, I decided to start coaching on this because of my personal transformation. And if you're interested, let's hop on a quick call. I'll explain it to you. See if it's a good fit." Yeah, and like Richard taught us initially, you have to do those market research calls. So I also went through that process, right? Where initially, like you weren't even pitching anything. It's just about getting on a call, understanding people's needs, right? What are their pain points? What are their goals? And then you make your offer based on what people tell you. And then you go back to those same people and you say, "Hey, I literally have something here that can help you with exactly what you mentioned you want." So I think that way it just makes sense for people to, yeah, to join.
And that's maybe something interesting. We can dive a little bit deeper on market research calls. Maybe quick background. Richard Yu is like an online coach teaching other people how to make money online or how to build up your own
Mhm.
coaching business. I think he pivoted a few years ago a little bit. But basically, he recommended to do some market research calls to better understand the pain points of your customers, what exactly they
Mhm.
are struggling with. And you hop on a call. I think it was more like, yeah, you hop on a call, offer something for free in return, something like that. And I found that I did this a similar approach, Leah, now with the SaaS project I was working on, the software startup project. And it was super, super helpful that phase because You know, back in the days when I used to do that, I ask many stupid questions that like leading questions, and then you get bad answers. But
Mm.
I read then two great books. The first was The Mom Test, which gives you like the general framework how to ask the right questions in those research calls, and then the Lean Customer Development by Cindy Alvarez. And then I really started to understand that if you talk to potential customers in the right way, they give you the real struggles, but they are also lying to you to a huge extent, you know, and you need to cut through that noise and find what are they really struggling with, and then to focus on that and build a business around that.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's just about like digging deeper, right? Permeating, as they say.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
What were some of the learnings you had from those market research calls?
The learnings, I guess I just learned that it's much more efficient, effective, that before you launch any kind of product or service that you think is great and will help everyone, like you literally just ask your target audience, right? Because you never know, right? You might think one way, but actually they want something else. So I think it's just a standardized way of launching anything, and it's just something I'll use for the rest of my life, probably. Mm.
Cool. Great way how to start any business. Talking
Yeah,
to people that might
exactly.
have a struggle. Yeah. I found it also kind of interesting. So you talk fluent Mandarin, English, and also German. You're half German, right? I found it very interesting because I think it's very rarely that people speak English, Mandarin, and I think even German, right?
Yeah, but my German is not that good because I was
Okay.
born and
Okay.
raised in China, so I spent like 18, 19 years in China. So English and Chinese, those are my best languages, and then German is intermediate level. I'm working on it. Yeah, but I can live in Germany. Like if I went to the doctors or the supermarket or to a restaurant, like I would be fine. Hmm.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Got it. So I remember I followed you for a certain period and you focus at that point more on the US market. And I think you finished then your master's degree at the Columbia University and went straight to China. Um,
Yeah.
is that true? And if yes, how was that experience like?
You mean like the experience at Columbia or
Yeah,
going
like
back to?
transitioning to China then, like because I think you spent a few years in New York, right?
Oh, okay, that's what you meant. Yeah, for sure. So I was doing my master's at Columbia in adult learning and leadership because I realized that, I'm going to be in this education industry for a long, long time. And I want to have like a solid background, especially because I deal with a lot of like Asian parents and they care a lot about the coach slash mentor's education background. Like if you're gonna help their kids improve their grades, get into a top university, then you better have gone to a top university, right? It only makes sense that way. So that was part of my motivation to go. And then going from the US back to China, I think it's always going to be a big shift because the two cultures are so different. But mm, yeah, I guess what I can say is going to the US, it really built my character, my storytelling skills, my marketing skills, like my self-expression, my confidence, especially my confidence. Like I felt like in the States, I really grew a lot as a person because especially New York is a place where you can be whoever you want, right? It doesn't matter. No one cares, right? Whereas I think in Asian cultures, like you want to fit in, you want to like if you're a girl, then you want to look and act like a girl. If you're a boy, then you want to act and look like a boy. So there's a lot more like gender stereotypes and just all kinds of I'd say soft restrictions, right? It's like what society puts upon you, how society expects you to act. So I think the biggest thing was going from the US back to China. I had to adjust to these hmm, restrictions, right? Even though they might not be like hard restrictions, but you feel it, right? You feel it in the culture. Hmm.
Is it a little bit more conservative in China? Like you said, those gender stereotypes, everything, everybody wants to fit in, or how do you see that?
Yeah, I think it's just Like, there are certain things that you don't say in China, right? And you try to be humble, for example. So, like when I was in the US and we would network with other entrepreneurs, like everyone's sharing their numbers, right? I did 100K this month or whatever, and like people are super happy and proud to talk about that. And it doesn't make them arrogant. Like, that's at least that's not what I think. I just think, they're telling me and it inspires me. But in China, it's like especially if you're young and successful, I think you're not supposed to kind of like just say it so boldly and loudly. Right? You kind of keep it under the surface. Like you don't really let people know about your success. At least you don't verbalize it. That's the thing. Like people might show it through watches, luxury things, cars. Like Chinese people like to buy a lot of luxury things to show, right, whatever they're wearing or what they have. But people don't really say that they're successful, if that makes sense. Yeah.
That reminds me a little bit of Switzerland. I'm
Oh,
living in the Swiss and in Switzerland, and it's less like you share how much you make. Although I found that actually sometimes very worth sharing. Like in the US, it's like I did 20K last month, and you share it all over the world. You know, with the entire
you
world, and
have to.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, interesting. So they are a little bit more down to earth. You don't share the numbers. You said something interesting in terms of New York. You said it shaped your character. How so?
How so? I think New York in general, the city just pushes you to your limits because it's a fast-paced city, right? And it's a city full of just very ambitious people. Like, I think if you don't have goals, you just don't go to New York, period. Right? Then you go to like the Midwest or something. I mean, I'm being very direct, but I think it's honestly the truth. Like everyone I've met in New York has some kind of goal, or usually they're big goals, big dreams, and people are going after those. Um, so I think the overall environment kind of just pushes you to be your best, to improve, to, make more money, to network, to do whatever you want to do. Um, and for me, because I was balancing, being a full-time master student and then also my business, I was still doing that because basically I was supporting myself financially. I didn't count on my parents. So, I had to make the tuition, which is not cheap, and then all those living costs as well. So I kept myself really busy. And then on top of that, there was also like socializing, just tons of events that you want to attend in New York, right? Because it doesn't make sense to just stay in your room all day and work on your business and not do any socializing. So I think balancing those three big areas also just forced my efficiency to be at its peak. Yeah.
Okay, can you tell again those three areas just that people can follow?
hmm So one was being a full-time student. I was doing my master's at Columbia. The other was continuing to run my business. I wasn't scaling, but I was still, maintaining it. And then lastly was socializing events. hmm
Okay, yeah, that's kind of challenging. What I found, what's kind of interesting to me is, so you're doing your master's degree, grad degree, you run the business, etc. One thing I struggled with to a certain degree in my time running a coaching business was this, let's say, this balance between how much one-on-one attention you want to give people and how much group coaching scalable solutions you offer, because your time is limited and in the beginning you do everything on your own. You do the
Mm.
client acquisition, you do lead gen, you do the sales calls, you do the onboarding, you do the delivery, the entire process basically. And I remember this continuum between, you have, if it's hard for the client but easy for you to deliver, you can charge less. Whereas if it's easy for the client but hard for you to deliver, you can charge more. And it's, I think,
Oh,
this
yeah.
continuum, it's a little bit this balance. How did you find a good balance between like getting the most out of your time, still getting new clients in, over delivering like crazy, like Richard you used to say? How did you master that?
Um, I was focused on like scalable solutions already at the start. So I didn't really offer one-on-one coaching unless, let's say, someone's willing to pay a huge premium, then I do it. But I rarely had those situations. So I think from the start, I built my coaching so that it would be scalable, like small group coaching, right? And over time, I've also just made the entire process as lean as possible, where like if I wanted to, I'm able to do everything myself and I still don't work that much. So for example, posting a piece of content every day, and then that content can be batched. So you can create multiple pieces of content on one day of the week, not one piece per day. Or you could just, cut content from your longer form. If you do like, for example, our podcast, right? We could both make a lot of pieces of short form from this. So I think content can be pretty easily optimized. And then there's, um, DMs, like responding to people, drawing people in. So for that, I would say before I used to do a lot of outbound and I did hire an appointment setter because that's super time consuming. I think if you're doing a lot of outbound, then I would recommend getting an appointment setter. But if you already have a lot of inbound, then I feel like you could kind of do it yourself, right? Because then it's not so time consuming. Like people are coming to you, they're pretty eager to just get on a call, right, to join the program. So yeah, for me now in the Chinese market, I mainly just do inbound and follow-ups. That's it. And then there's getting on a call. I do that myself as well because I think that's a really critical component. But you could, of course, hire closers if you're already at that stage. But the thing is, I think if you want a quality closer, like someone actually good at sales, then you have to pay a premium price, right? Because they have so many opportunities. Basically, if you're good at sales, you could work anywhere, right? And you could make a good income. So at least for myself, I feel like I'm not at that stage yet. So I just do that myself. And it's just a 30-minute call. Like again, the entire consultation call, I have I have a few set questions. I just go through them, bam, bam, bam. And then I explain the program to people. And then that's basically it, right? So it's a very simple process. And lastly, delivery. So small group coaching, pretty streamlined. Um, yeah. I would say I think it depends a lot on what you want. Like, do you just want to be a one person show and, minimize your costs? Or do you want to have a team and scale a lot, but then also have a lot of costs and have to manage a lot of people? So for me at this stage, I know what I want is just lean, lean, lean. Like to do as much as possible on my own first, see what my limits are. And then once I have, let's say, a lot of leads coming in to the point where I can't handle it anymore, then I'm going to hire.
Maybe we can quickly break that down a bit. So we have those different stages. We have first, you want to generate traffic, you post any
Right.
content, you DM with them to get them on a sales call, you close them, you deliver, and then you make sure you retain those clients. So in terms of content, you said like repurposing content, or you like long form, putting in like breaking down into short form, and you deliver that across platforms. In terms of lead gen, you hire appointment setter. Maybe for listeners, an appointment setter is basically someone who texts with people on your Instagram, like basically on your profile. That's what this
Yeah.
person is doing with the overarching goal to book appointments as much as possible, and they get like a provision. And then sales call, it's still you, Lea, that run those sales call, and then you deliver the program. Okay, interesting. Did you still do the same approach also now in China, by the way? I think it's always the same, right?
Yeah, it's kind of the
Yeah.
same process. I mean, it's just a different platform like WeChat, but I do live streams like I did before. I post short videos like I would on Instagram, like Instagram Reels. So it's very similar. Mm.
When you hear the phrase, how you do one thing is how you do everything, what comes to mind, Lea?
Richard. And after that, um, I do think it's a very powerful message. And I think that like I really followed that and I still do with a lot of areas of my life. But I think when I first started on this journey of starting my own business, and also I went through Richard's first program, by the way, the high performance training program. Did you go through that one?
I think I went through a later version. They
Okay.
improved it after that, I think, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, like initially I was drawn to Richard not because of how good he was at business, but because of how just high performing, disciplined he was on a daily basis. So I joined that program, and in the high performance training program, something he would say at the end of every single coaching call. Yeah, it was like his motto, right? Was how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I think that message really stuck with me. And I think it's really important. Like, for example, in business, right? If you don't treat one area of your business correctly or seriously, then it's going to affect another area of your business. And also, I think business and personal life, these are intertwined. It's like if you don't take care of your health, if you don't exercise, if you don't eat right, then that's going to affect your business too. So I think that was how he explained it to us, right? Like you have to treat every single area of your life with excellence. Do your best in every single area. Hmm.
How you do one thing is how you do everything. I very much love
Mhm.
that. It's like, so in terms of Richard, I think you got first inspired by him, like by these YouTube videos he uploaded, right? Like morning,
Yeah,
like 3:30 a.m. morning routine, stuff like that.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, tell us a little bit more about that.
Was it the same for you, by the way?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it was kind of It was. I followed him on YouTube for quite a long period. Not on Instagram, nothing. Just YouTube videos, and I was very inspired by this high performance life he was living. He woke up early, took a cold shower, did his Bible studies, got straight to work, and was hustling all day. Then getting this mentor, I think Vince Del Monte, he was working with, and
Yeah.
simply following his entire journey was pretty inspiring. And I wanted to buy his program, his coaching program, to become a coach, like already in 2021, I think, when you actually purchased the program, I presume. But I was too scared, quite frankly. I was thinking, okay, if I buy this program, this would imply that I need to go hop on social media and record myself and put myself out there. I was a little bit procrastinating on that. And then a year later, after running my podcast, publishing a lot of podcast episodes, I decided, okay, now it's time for it. Do it. And yeah, it was the best decision I would say in terms of business that I've made so far, in terms of learning fast the fundamentals of doing business, because this program is not just, at least from my point of view, not only for how to run a coaching business, but also in general how to build up any business, because you
Mm.
need to let people know about the stuff you want to sell them, you need to close them, and you need to deliver them a product. So
Yeah, for sure. I honestly think it was more valuable than any class I'd ever taken, high school or college, right? They just don't teach this. It's real life skills. Yeah. Hmm.
it's super interesting, by the way. In terms of the, let's say, the traditional education path is you go to university and then perhaps you climb the corporate ladder. That's one option. And I also, earlier, I'm soon finishing my master's degree, and I'm very grateful for that education. So I will not denigrate in any word that education. Very grateful for it. However, I think it's no longer the most efficient path to build up high income skills. Like
Mhm.
you and I, we went both through that program, and it was like 3 months. I don't know how long it was in your case, but in my case, 3 months. You have
Yeah.
videos, you have a community, you have coaching calls, and within
Yeah.
like 1 month, you can already have paying clients, which is crazy. And
Mm.
I thought, okay,
Exactly.
that's interesting.
Yeah. For example, yeah, for sure, speed, right? I agree. I mean, as you see, like college acceptances or college, not acceptances, college applications, like people applying to colleges, especially in the US, where it's very expensive anyway, has been declining since COVID quite significantly. So, yeah, a lot of universities are even closing, the smaller ones, less famous. And I think there's a clear reason for that. Like people are choosing blue collar jobs, right? Like jobs where they can really learn a practical skill and use it immediately. Or people are choosing to, become content creators, build a personal brand online, and then monetize. Yeah.
Yeah, especially in terms of that blue collar job shift. That's interesting. Like, you
Yeah.
know, if you think like education to become a general manager gets paid less than any engineer, I feel like nowadays, or any, you know what I mean? It's like uh, building up very, let's say, useful skills is very valuable. And maybe something also in terms of this alternative education area that's growing and growing. Like, I see different different fields of interest. One is you have those coaching programs, obviously, those courses you can buy, but also like I saw, for instance, Jordan Peterson building his Peterson Academy, which I found pretty interesting in terms of bringing in all professors from all around the world and tell them simply, hey, teach whatever course you want. You're totally free what to do, and we don't give you like a course set and tell you precisely this
Yeah.
is what you can do, what you shouldn't do. I found that also an interesting approach to yeah, educate
Yeah.
people on yeah. What are your thoughts on that, perhaps?
Yeah, I think professors should teach things that they've actually done themselves. So, for example, if there's a business professor, but he's never started a business himself, he's never been involved in business, it's like, does that really make sense? Theoretically, maybe yes, from a textbook perspective, but not from a practical perspective, right? So I just believe in learning from people who have done it, whether it's business or piano or art or, soccer or whatever. Yeah.
Why do you believe that?
Why do I believe that? Um, because I believe in systems and models. Like I'm sure that, for example, if there's a really profitable business, then there's a certain system or model that they're using, right, from start to finish that's making the business very profitable. So if you can replicate that process, then you should achieve some results as well. Of course, there's like moving pieces, right? The external world is always moving, the economy is shifting. But still, I think what you can control is following a proven process. And I think that's also the value of paying for mentors, right? Because they can just show you a proven process, one that they've tested themselves for a long period of time and has produced results. They can just show you step by step as opposed to you like trying to do research and figuring everything out yourself.
So you're saying like you get a step-by-step process, you just can execute and get results.
Yeah. And I think it's also the confidence that you get and the urgency. Like once you have a mentor or you join a coaching program, like you're expected to get results pretty quickly, right? There's a timeline. So as you said, like in Richard's program, the high performance influencer, at least that's what it was called when I joined, within the first, I forgot it was if it was 30 or 45 days of joining, like literally starting from zero, you're supposed to like get your first group of clients, right? And the goal was to make 10K, I think, the first 10K, right?
10K in
So
30 days, right?
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I actually got that award. So,
Congrats.
um,
Great, great.
thank you, thank you. So the point is, it's like once you join a structured program like this, you know exactly what to do because it's all laid out for you. So you could just follow, right, and focus on execution as opposed to figuring out the steps yourself, right? And then you also execute with a lot more confidence because you're like, this is what my coach is teaching me, right? It must work. And on top of that, it's just the urgency, right? You have to take action, no more procrastination.
So really urgency. So you get really pressured to a certain degree into that in a healthy way, of course. You get pushed.
Yeah,
And execution because you have all the sales call scripts, the outreach scripts, all at your disposal, basically.
exactly. And you've got like coaching calls, right, where you're expected to show up and share your results every week. You can't say, like, I didn't do anything, right? Because everyone around you is pushing. So it's like you're not going to sit back and do nothing. Yeah.
Especially in terms of getting a a system that really works already. This was super helpful for me because
Mhm.
you know, especially because recently I worked on this software startup project and I had less kind of a SOP plan. This is what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I struggled a little bit with that, to be frank.
Mhm.
Whereas then when running a coaching business, it was super clear and you just needed to execute. And interestingly, this was one of my main takeaways. You don't need to be that smart to make money online. It's just,
Mhm.
did you spend 90 minutes per day on creating high quality content? Then did you do your outreaches 3-4 hours a day to book
Yeah.
sales calls? Did you book at least 1 or 2 sales calls per day? And if you track your inputs pretty
Mhm.
properly, it's like inevitable that you make some money. You don't need to be a genius. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I was also surprised because growing up, I was always more of the shy follower kind. Like, whatever my friend said, I just said, okay, sure. Like, I never really had my opinion. I never went against other people because I was afraid of conflict. And like for me, with my personality, being able to overcome a lot of that shyness and, fear of sales, etc., and then go on to like actually build a sustainable coaching business, it was surprising at first, right? Like I had the confidence, but still, when you start getting those results, it's like, wow, I really can do this. And I really can even change my personality for the better through the process of starting a business. Like I can go from a really shy person to someone who's much more confident and outgoing. Mm.
What just popped into my mind was I think you got already a yes to an internship, or you said yes to an internship at Ernst and Young, I think, when you started. Is that
Yeah,
right? Because
that's true.
that's kind of interesting because there are so many, if you do like Columbia or you do like, I don't know, in my case it was University of St. Gallen, you are there and people are expect of you, you do either strategy consulting like McKinsey and
Mm.
so on, or like Big Four. Like, what? How did you feel in that moment when you said, "I don't do that. I go all in on coaching, or to a certain degree, all in on coaching."
Yeah, so here I can share another really powerful quote. Like just now we mentioned how you do one thing is how you do everything. Another quote that I love, which also came from Richard, I mean, I don't think he invented it, but he shared it with me, is, when you're young, take bigger risks and dream bigger dreams. Because I don't know if you know of his story of how he kind of got into entrepreneurship, because initially he was going to go down the medical path, right? And then he shifted to entrepreneurship. And that story of him going to England as like a really young boy, I forgot how old he was, but he was young, I think his second or third year of undergrad, and then meeting Ben Francis and basically going through a really difficult process and just a lot of persistence to finally meet Ben Francis and then having that conversation with him. And then Ben Francis telling him, take bigger dreams, dream bigger dreams, take bigger risks. I thought that entire story was super inspiring. So, when I heard about his story of getting into entrepreneurship, and also Ben Francis, because he himself took a big risk when he was young, right, to start Gymshark. I think those examples of people who had done it, and also people similar to our age, like people who weren't that old, that really inspired me to take the leap. Like, I think if I didn't have these examples, these role models, then I also wouldn't have the belief in myself, right? I'd be scared. But because I saw so many people around me, similar age, doing it, I was like, yeah, let me just try, right? I feel like I genuinely have a chance of making it as an entrepreneur. Hmm.
So really take big risk while you're young. That's the main takeaway.
Yeah, exactly. It's like dream bigger and just take bigger risks. Why? Because when you're young, it's actually not that risky, right? Because you don't have a family and you can live with your parents still. You have a lot of leverage, right? You can save on a lot of things. And when you're older, let's say when you're in your 30s, 40s, you actually have a family, right? You have to support your kids, your family, so you need more stability. But when you're young, you really don't. Like you could make a lot, you could lose it all, you could start all over again. Hmm.
Like we have nothing to lose, basically.
Yeah, you could go back to university as well.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Also, this idea of notion of you want to learn before you earn in your 20s, maybe also early 30s. Found it
I
very
love that.
inspiring because it's like
Yeah.
I think, and that's fine. Some people want to optimize for increasing their earning capacity pretty early on. They maybe finish their master's degree, go to a nice corporate job. Maybe they do strategy consulting. They get their 80, 90, 100K on their first
Mm.
real job. And then they get at one point partner and they have their, I don't know how much, they get a lot of money, I think. But I think Hormozi's story is also kind of inspiring. Like he started out, he had a white collar job, strategy consultant or consultant basically. Then he made
Oh,
the
really?
shift and became, yeah,
Oh,
a fitness coach and earned like minimum wage for a certain period, I think.
mm,
But with the overarching goal in mind that okay, I want to really become good in the fitness space, in entrepreneurship, and because all of his friends went into like had his fancy jobs, made good money, but he thought long term. He knew that if he's doing that well, maybe in his 30s he will like make even more money than altogether all his other friends. But
yeah.
first you need to do the hard lift, and then it will pay off later on.
Yeah, for sure. It's again, it's just deciding what kind of life you want. Like even myself recently, I went through this anxious phase of, checking my friends' profiles on LinkedIn and realizing, oh my gosh, they all have, such great, prestigious consulting jobs or, jobs at big companies. And then feeling kind of left out. Right? Feeling all alone, like, oh, they're all a part of this group of big companies, and I'm just here doing my own thing. Like, am I doing something wrong? Should I also apply for a job? But then when I just calm down and ask myself, like, what kind of life do I want? Right? Not my parents, not society. Like, what do I want? I know that what I'm doing now is going to help me, and it actually is already helping me live the life that I want, which is freedom, being able to travel, spend time with my parents, right? While they can still travel and they're still rather young, and just not having to commute every day, not having to listen to a boss, right? Being able to make my own decisions, not having to deal with a ton of bureaucracy and just unnecessary things that you get in corporate jobs, right? Yeah. So I think the earlier we realize what kind of life we really want and the earlier we start just working towards what we want, the better. Mm.
You also said in one video something like, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm made to be a coach. And I found that super inspiring. I think you said that in a Facebook video. I mentioned that before the recording. I'm made to be a coach, and I found that very inspiring. Like how clearly you knew that you know you're made for that, or you're really enjoying doing that. And I think listening to that as opposed to just like letting other people dictate what we actually are supposed to do is way more healthier in the end. At least
Mm.
this is what is for me. And I totally get what you're saying in terms of this social pressure you see, like yourself, you're running like a coaching business because other people, I think some people see like you're doing coaching and they think directly on those shady people, but there are so many wonderful people in the coaching industry, obviously. And then you think you
Yeah.
see their internships, you see, oh, they have big corporate names. But then, like you said, like, I don't care. I do my thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, sometimes I might be envying them for something like, oh, the prestige or the stability. But at the same time, like they might not like their corporate job and they might be envying us, right? The entrepreneurs who have freedom and can do whatever they want. So it's just comparison, I think, is completely unnecessary unless you do it in a good way where it inspires you, right? Like you have a role model, right? And you compare them in the sense that you think if they can do it, so can I. Hmm.
I really love that what you just said in terms of you can learn, like, use it as a source for inspiration because you can learn from everybody something, whether it's from a positive trait or a negative, whatever it is, you can take something away. That's for
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
I listened
Wait,
to,
wait,
yeah,
sorry, can I ask you a
please.
quick question? Like, as you said, graduating from a prestigious university and I think Switzerland, I don't know, is it super entrepreneurial or is it more traditional? Like, you mentioned that a lot of your friends are also going to like strategy consulting, these top tier firms, right? Prestigious roles. And then you perhaps are more of the entrepreneurial kind. So I guess, how do you feel? Like, do you feel sometimes a little bit confused or do you compare yourself to them? And do you see yourself more as the corporate kind or do you see yourself just naturally as an entrepreneur?
So to answer that question, maybe a few errors. So I did two internships. One in Switzerland was like 1 year internship in a corporate, which
Okay.
was in the end also pretty entrepreneurial experience because they gave me a lot of freedom. I had like my own company within the company. Then I
Oh, wow.
got into a second internship in the US in Salt Lake City, 6 month Swiss company. They are producing trains or manufacturing trains. And again was a similar situation there, but I realized something. Although I'm super grateful for that experience, I learned a lot. I'm a little bit an unconventional guy in terms of I don't like to follow the strict processes, and sometimes it's too slow. You have like give you a specific example. You want to install Evernote on your computer and you need to ask the IT department and to get their approval, and that's just a waste of time. And I thought, okay, I'm a little bit more unconventional. I want to use my MacBook when working. I don't want to use a Win. Like it starts with simple things like that.
Mm.
And I decided for myself right now at this point in life, I'm more made for the startup role, for the entrepreneurial world. And that made me also decide to now join a Swiss startup, or I will start on June 2nd as a sales development representative, which is a fancy word for someone who generates leads and books appointments, basically, in a SaaS software company or startup. Because, yeah, I think, yeah, I'm a little bit unconventional. And maybe a second component how I actually decided or figured out that this world is more made for me is Jordan Peterson has this writing program, Self-Authoring Suit, which is like a 3-part program, a series of writing programs. You basically write about your past, you write about things maybe that still bother you, then you write about your present, you think of about your flaws, but also your strength. And then very important, the last piece to it, depends in which order you do the program, you write about your life vision. You create a plan, what goals you want to hit, what's your overarching mission in life. And this made clear, and one takeaway I had there is, okay, right now I want to focus on software sales. And I created this kind of a boundary, like where I want to like be right now in that space, basically, like in software sales, to become very good at that. That might change in future, but this very much helped me to get clarity on that front. So long story short, to break that down, yeah, corporate world, I saw it a little bit. I saw a little bit entrepreneurship, and I figured out, okay, entrepreneurship, I'm feeling more comfortable there. Also because I started 3 smaller businesses myself, and I just realized,
Mm.
okay, this world of moving fast, moving lean is more suitable for me personally. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, amazing. And I think what you're doing now, like going to a startup, it's kind of corporate, right? But you also get more flexibility. So it's like corporate, but also entrepreneurial, which is cool. Kind of combining both. Mm.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, it's we are 15 people, 15 employees basically.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it's super small, and you're
Yeah.
just starting out. They have roughly, I think, 1 million in revenue right now, and they have plans to expand to the US in maybe 2, 3 years, depends a little bit. And maybe being part of that growth journey, I'm very excited about that. So looking forward to that
Yeah.
experience.
Sure.
Yeah.
Amazing. Mm.
Uh, uh, something maybe s s I listened to one of your podcasts you did before this conversation, and you said there's something like, I did my undergrad in the Netherlands at a very average school, but where education quality is very high. It's just a standard there. I don't really see a big difference compared to Columbia University. I found that super interesting. Can you break that down a little bit? In what ways is it actually similar, and where does it differ?
Yeah,
Like those
yeah.
unis?
Let's just hope people from Columbia don't see this podcast because I think
Yeah,
it would be
okay.
bad for their or
That's fine.
marketing. Because the tuition's like, I don't know, 20x more than my undergrad. But anyhow, what I meant there was, I think like the quality of education that you get, or at least in my experience, my undergrad in the Netherlands, where the school's not advertised as like a Ivy League university, right? It's not that prestigious, but it's good because in the Netherlands, basically every single university has high standards, right? They have good professors, pretty good students, etc. So what I'm saying is the quality of education you get, like the things you learn, I honestly don't think there was a huge premium in Columbia, right? The things that I actually learned, basically the same quality. I think it's more so just about your circle, right? When you go to Columbia, you know that most of the people around you, especially the students like coming from outside of the States, you know that they're pretty well doing, right? So their family probably has businesses, right? They have connections. So honestly, I think that is more so the value of going to a top university where like tuition's really high, it's very prestigious, right? I really just think it's the people around you and making those connections. So that's also why, during my undergrad, I focused mainly on studying. I mean, I also tried a lot of events, but I would say my main focus was still on like studying, getting good grades, because I knew that I wanted to do a master's. And then my focus at Columbia was really not so much on grades, because I'm like, I don't want to spend a lot of time in my room studying. Like, what's the point of that, right? I'm not going to do a PhD afterwards. So I spent most of my time at Columbia, honestly, just like networking. And I even made an Excel sheet. I remember as soon as I got to New York, I was like, I need to keep these connections, right? I don't want to forget all the people I'm meeting because you meet so many people in a short amount of time. Like you attend one event and then there might be like 100 people that you meet. So how do you possibly remember all these people, right? So I decided, okay, let me keep track of all this on an Excel sheet because this is super valuable, right? Human resources. And yeah, so I have this Excel sheet with all these columns of like different nationalities or where people are based. So like US, China, Australia, Switzerland, basically everywhere in the world where I have friends or I know someone, and then I'll write down the name of the person I know and then their contacts. So like, Instagram, WeChat, WhatsApp, so that in the future, if I go to any of these countries listed, I can first look at that list and be like, oh, Nicola's in Switzerland and I'm going to Switzerland. Why don't I, message him and see if we can meet up or we can do something together? So I think it's really just about the network.
I love how you broke that down, this Excel sheet, that you gave the precise how you build up that Excel sheet. I think that's super helpful. Keep track of your contacts, right?
Yeah,
Do do you
exactly.
check in with them regularly, like from time to time, going through the list and send them a quick message, or do you have any routine
Yeah.
around that?
I should do that. That would be even better. In fact, my mom reminded me actually a while ago. She was like, Leah, every single day you should message 3 people that you know. It doesn't matter who it is, just like 3 friends, and say hello, like check in on them, right? See how they're doing so that you don't just have like a bunch of names in your contacts, but you actually stay in close contact with these people. And in the future, like if you need help or you want to do something together, like it's easier to do that because you always kept that close connection. So the short answer is I am not necessarily doing that all the time. But again, anytime I travel, like I'll look at that list. And then immediately I can make friends in this new country.
A great strategy to keep track of your contacts. I very much love that. Maybe quickly circling back to Columbia University. Now, you stepped into some leadership roles outside the classroom. You mentioned that in another conversation. What kind of roles have you taken on and what pulled you into that?
Yeah, what pulled me in was just realizing that I want to become a better leader because I think if you are an entrepreneur, like constantly you're communicating with people, you need to negotiate, you need to persuade in an ethical way, obviously. So yeah, you need to have influence, right? So what I did was I would say I wasn't a part of so many like fixed clubs or commitments. It was more so I volunteered to be a speaker. For example, where I lived, it was this huge building with over 700 international students, and we would always have like guest speakers. So I just volunteered to give a few workshops, sharing, for example, my story of becoming an entrepreneur, hopefully inspiring other people to also find their own path in entrepreneurship. And I also gave a workshop about time management habits, what I coach on. So I did that, which is leadership because it requires like, speaking in front of a lot of people. And then I also, again, volunteered to be the MC for a lot of big events, like where we had hundreds of people, because we would have these just events at certain times of the year, like Thanksgiving or at the start of the semester, at the end of the semester to celebrate new students, to celebrate graduating students. So I would just volunteer to MC at these events and force myself to get over my fear of like public speaking, especially in front of a huge crowd. So yeah, I think it's just like making use of all these opportunities slash events.
So, constant exposure. I think that's the key
Mm.
to becoming
Yeah,
confident, right?
exactly. Yeah. Just small steps, right? Like doing it once, for example, being MC once, and you realize, hey, that wasn't so bad. And then you do it again and again and again. And then every time your confidence grows a little bit. And another thing that's really helped me in terms of overcoming the fear of public speaking is just focusing outwards as opposed to inwards, right? Because if I'm on stage and there are 500 people in the audience and I'm focusing on my appearance or how I sound or how I whatever, then of course I'm going to be nervous, right? But if I just focus outwards on like trying to help these people, trying to deliver my message, then it shifts the attention from me to others. And then immediately we feel less nervous. Hmm.
That's interesting. Yeah, then you feel less nervous. I remember, and I bring up multiple times Peterson in this episode, but he mentioned
Hmm.
once he's focusing while giving a speech, trying to talk to individuals, like focusing maybe 1 minute on this person and then 1 minute on that person. And like you just mentioned, like focusing on the value, what I want to deliver to people. I found that I think that makes it way more easy to yourself instead of having this anonymous crowd in front of you. Whereas if you know, oh, I'm talking to a person, it's way more. It's like when having a conversation in a podcast setting. It's like we knowing maybe one person in my audience keeps me on track. You know that I'm at least talking to someone. Does that
Yeah,
make
for
sense?
sure. Yeah. And I think it's really just like having a one-on-one conversation, but with a bunch of people, right? Sometimes when you start counting the amount of people in the audience, it's like, oh my gosh, there's 500 people, there's 1,000 people, right? It feels like so many people. But at the end of the day, it's just like one person, one person, one person. They're all just individual people listening to you. So you can kind of see it as like a one-on-one conversation, even just times however many people are in the audience. Hmm.
Do you have a particular story that very much stayed in your mind, in your memory from those experiences giving speeches?
Yeah, I actually do. I would say, again, I volunteered to MC for this big annual event. I don't remember the name. I'm sorry. I think it was like Halloween. Yes, it was a Halloween event combined with something else. So in our residential building with over 700 students, I think we had at least like 300 people participate. And there were a lot of performers. And basically what I had to do was bring the energy on. Like I had to, make these people laugh. I had to make it really fun, really exciting because it was more of a fun event as opposed to like a very formal event. So I had to show my personality. I had to be really bold. And I had people recording me in the audience because I was like, please record it. I want to use this for my content. And then looking back, I'm like, oh my goodness, like I sounded so natural on stage. Like, even though maybe beforehand I was super, nervous, but on stage, like I sounded great. And then I had a lot of people come to me after the event and say, like, wow, you did so well. You seemed so confident. You spoke so clearly. So I got a lot of positive feedback. And for me, that was a huge shift, like a mental shift from I'm not so good at public speaking to wow, I actually am really good at public speaking. Yeah.
Super inspiring. So you got basically evidence that you can do what you wanted to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mm.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, and cool. So you also had you could use that directly as content for your social media then. So it was like you got exposure and you also got content. Yeah.
Exactly, right? I mean, when you are an entrepreneur and you make content, right? Like you think about those things every day. So whatever you're doing, if it could be interesting, then you record it. Hmm.
I love that. That's good. Maybe a cool strategy for folks out there to you have so many opportunities to create content and use everyday situations to use as a
Exactly.
baseline for content, right? A rather personal question, and feel free to say I don't want to answer that. What's your relationship with your dad like today?
Oh, wait, where did you get this question from? No, I'm just curious. Like, I'm happy to
I
answer.
prepared.
Oh, yeah, I can tell. I could tell. I don't even remember where I mentioned this. Was it with Harley?
Could be, yeah, was called a podcast conversation. Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember what I said back then. I don't remember his question. I would say it's okay, right? So, like growing up, I think I just had to mature really quickly, and take on a role of kind of protecting my mom, right? It's not that there's any like huge violence in my home, but it's more just like emotional support, right? Because my father doesn't really give that to us. So I felt like growing up, I had to step up and give that kind of emotional support to my mom. And we've always been very close for that reason. We're kind of like a team, right? So we comfort each other, we support each other in everything. And I guess I've just learned to accept not just my dad, but anyone around me for who they are. Like there might be certain things I don't like about him, but that's just the way it is, right? I can't change him. I've tried, even as a coach, but a lot of these personality things and habits, they're formed already at childhood, right? So trying to overturn these things that have been formed so long ago or have persisted for so many years and decades is quite tough. So I think what's really happened is I've just learned to accept. Mm.
So acceptance a little bit as the main resolution to that, or
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because if you don't accept and you try to fight through it and you try to think, oh, I have to get this person to change, to do things my way or the way that I want him or her to do them, then there's pain, right? There's pain. There's uh, just basically you end up hurting yourself. Mm. Because you feel angry, you feel pain, and then it ends up hurting your health or your mental well-being, etc. So it's like I just realized, why would I want to do that to myself, right? Hmm.
appreciate that you're so open about this topic
Yeah.
very much because it's if you see people out there like there are some stories I heard, can't name a particular one, but they've had a pretty hard upbringing and they managed somehow like you now to accept it, but also to be
Mm.
grateful because they believe that still this person tried their best, or at least they gave a little bit effort. In some cases, like I remember one story where someone had a father who was pretty like authoritarian, and yeah, he nowadays he's in good relationship with him because he started to accept that the fact and to be grateful in spite of, like, although he had many flaws. I found that kind of inspiring. Thanks for sharing that, Leah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
for sure, for sure. Um, Yeah, I think it's kind of just the process of growing up and also learning to speak up. Like, for example, when I was young, I was afraid to speak up against my dad. So I would just keep it all inside, and that's very dangerous, right? If you have a lot of like pain or hurt just like inside you and you don't find a way to release it. So, what I've also realized now and what I'm able to do now since I'm much older is I'm able to like talk to my dad. I'm able to tell him my opinion, right? I'm able to stand up for myself or for my mom. So, I think being able to let it go, like let out those emotions is also really important. Hmm.
I really love that because, you know, curious, what do you think about that, Leah? In any relationship, you could always quit. You can say, I don't care anymore. I don't want to speak to that person. Or on the
Hmm.
flip side, you could have 1,000 hard conversations to figure out a solution. And although the latter option is way harder, I think long term wise, it's more sustainable, and it's when going through life. Like,
Hmm.
because my brain tells me sometimes in some instances with people like, hey, why am I bothering, like, why I'm still spending time with that person? But then I think, okay, actually think this person is still a great person. It's sometimes hard, but let's figure out a game we are both willing to play. And having that in mind, to find a game we are both willing to play, and with going in with that mindset of we are stuck with each other and we should have like 1,000 hard conversations or even more to figure out a solution. I found that super useful advice.
Yeah. And I think one more good thing that comes from having a um, difficult upbringing, right? Having certain challenges with parents or just people in your family is it helps you realize at a young age. Like, for example, I know pretty clearly based on what I've experienced with my dad, like what kind of partner I'm looking for in the future. Right. Like I know what I don't want. I know what I want pretty clearly. Whereas let's say if I had like the perfect mom and dad growing up, no arguments at all, like both super loving, no flaws at all, then maybe I think like, oh, everyone's good. Like anyone who comes into my life, great. Right. So I think yeah, it helps you mature earlier. It also helps you realize what you really want in any relationship, whether it's a partner or a business relationship or anything. Hmm.
Appreciate your words. Now, Leo, what's next for you?
Good question. Yes, thank you for asking. So I'm planning to actually get back into Instagram and in the future YouTube because I think what I'm doing now, it's great, but it could be a little bit risky because I'm mainly just on one platform, right? And what I should also tell you about Chinese social media is there are a lot more restrictions than like Instagram and YouTube, right? On Instagram, YouTube, you can show whatever you want, you can say whatever you want, you can express any opinion, even political things. They're probably not going to block you, right? Unless you say something extremely outrageous. But on Chinese social media, like you have to be careful, right? So I think for me, just to have more like peace of mind and to be able to also capture the Chinese market and the global market, I want to get back onto Instagram consistently and I want to like grow my Instagram this time because in the past I did Instagram for like 2 years, also very consistently posting every day, but I never really understood the algorithm. So my reels didn't really go off. I didn't really grow to that many followers. So this time I want to give myself like a real shot, maybe even hire a Instagram growth expert or coach just to learn how to edit powerful reels, how to, yeah, go viral, like get some viral videos, million view videos, and hopefully blow up on Instagram. Yeah.
I'm sure you will do that. And maybe one thing I quickly want to cover is you said you need to be careful what you share. Could you give some examples just to understand that?
Yeah, so it's just there are a lot of constantly changing rules in China, like regarding everything. It's not just social media, it's like if you do any kind of business, right? And that's also the reason why I would not do any kind of business in China where I have to like rent a physical place because I just don't think it's very reliable. Like anything could happen. They could take that space away from you because the government now wants to like build something using that space or whatever. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in China, of course, because it's a huge population. But I think the opportunity is in lean businesses where you don't have that much upfront investment. You have to like buy equipment or buy space. I would not do that. And online is great, but online too, like you just have to follow up with the updates, right? So on these platforms, they will post occasional updates and you have to know about them. Because I'll give you an example. For example, doctors in China, they are not really allowed to live stream in China because I mean, I don't even understand why. It's hard to explain. But like you have to be a very specific kind of doctor, I think at a public hospital, not a private hospital, in order to do live streaming and in order to give advice. If you are not that kind of doctor and you try to live stream and you try to like give medical advice, if you try to sell medical products, boom, they block your account and you're not allowed to live stream, right? So sometimes it's quite extreme. And that's exactly why I want to have Instagram slash YouTube, another platform where it's not really regulated.
Okay, to distribute a little bit or diversify your client acquisition.
Exactly. To keep it simple.
Got it. Okay. So very exciting plans you're having, and we are rooting for you. I'm rooting for you, I'm sure. And if there's any help, always feel free to reach out, Lea, that's for sure. So
Appreciate
yeah, that's cool. So now, where's the best place for people to find you online?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on Instagram. As I just said, I'm planning to start that up again and post very consistently, like a reel every day. So my name, Leabochtler, just my full name, very simple. And on WeChat, if you guys have WeChat, then my WeChat ID is LEAB666. So again, LEAB666. Yeah.
Perfect. We will also link everything in the show notes. Cool.
Sounds good.
Hey, thanks, Lea. Thanks for your time.